You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name's Anthony Leveritz, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and I am joined again by Hannah Huesman of Mental Sweat, very high-level human being and mental performance coach, trainer, and has been gracious enough to be a part of this series with us. And I have enjoyed this immensely. I hope our listeners are enjoying it as well. And Hannah, thank you so much for coming on and doing this with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Well, let's dive right in. We are going into, I think, a really interesting topic here today. I think they're all interesting or we wouldn't be doing them. But this one, to me, I'm a little unsure of it. And the one we just did on confidence, you kind of blew my mind on that one as well. So I'm expecting the same thing to happen today. But we're going to talk about decision-making under pressure, right? And it's such a big topic for parents with kids, in athletics, in the business world. I'm fascinated to hear how we begin to discuss this. So why don't, like we normally do, define what that actually means?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're talking about decision-making in general, right, you got to think about, okay, if we're making a decision based off thoughts that we have, and we have 60,000 plus thoughts a day.
I remember you saying that before. It blew my mind.
Isn't that crazy?
That was a thought that went through my head, was one of those 60,000 that blows my mind.
And that's probably average, right? So some of us, probably those who are overthinkers, which is not a bad thing, or those who are playing sports and have to make even more decisions in a finite amount of time, we're probably making even more than that. So to me, when it comes to decision-making under pressure, right, it's understanding I'm trying to do something, right? I'm trying to complete a task at hand, and I have to make a decision on how I'm going to do that. Which when I think about it from a mental perspective and weight of that question, the only way you can be quick and or good at making decisions under pressure is by how you prepare, right? And I used to say it all the time, like, if you want to think less while you're playing, you have to think more before you play.
I love that.
Like, think about that, right? You can't expect to go into a fast-paced game, be it basketball, hockey, football, baseball, whatever you want to think about, where you've got multiple decisions to make and you're in the heat of the moment going through A through Z. Like, which one am I going to make? Honey, you can't even get to C without, now you're late, you got beat, you hesitated, the decision. You don't even have time to make a decision. Your decision, you made a decision and you froze. That was the decision you made, right? So to me, I think it comes back to understanding all the different decisions that you possibly might have to make in a game, right? Or in a pressure situation for the workforce, and preparing so thoroughly before that actually happens. Like, that's the only way you're going to be able to make a decision fast, especially when you're under pressure.
So how do I practice this with young people as a coach, as a mentor, as a parent? How do I implement this? And I'll give you, once you've told me your mental performance side, I'll tell you kind of how I did it in my coaching world and see what you think.
Yeah. I think to me, it comes down to, okay, if I was going to break this down with a team, I would say, what are some of the biggest decisions we have to make throughout a game? Like, maybe top 5. Like, we don't need to make this too long. Like, what are the top 5 things that maybe we have to decide, or that we've been making errors with, that are really like where we're getting in our own way? Like, why do we keep doing this when we should be doing that, right? Like, things that we're seeing repetitively. And that's where I think the coach can come in and kind of help, but give them that autonomy to kind of figure that out. Because that's probably not a question anyone's ever been asked.
Yeah.
So even just asking that question, hey, where do we make the most important decisions of the game? And how are we doing with those decisions, right? So just that conversation alone, you're already going to start to move that needle closer to where you want to be. And then once you identify those 5 things, or the 5 areas we need to get better at, then it's like, okay, what's our decision-making process when this happens? And like, how can we narrow it down, right? What are all the different things we can do when that happens? And then what are the things we want to actually do of those answers? And how do we narrow it down to like 1 or 2? So now in the heat of the moment, it's either A or B instead of A through Z. and you just kind of watch them narrow that down. And then, okay, now that we just talked about that one decision, let's go physically practice it. That's where you bridge the mental preparation with the actual physical task. Because if you sit in a classroom and talk about this for an hour and a half and then go out and practice and don't translate it, you might as well have not even had the meeting. Maybe it'll help a little bit, but it's not going to translate. And so I would say take this in doses, right? Because this is heavy stuff. This is deep stuff. If you're talking about the 5 most important decisions you make during a game, and these aren't decisions that happen once. These are like over and over and over. Do you pass or do you shoot? Do you pass or do you shoot? Whatever, like things like that, things that happen hundreds of times during a game. And then go practice it. And like, maybe you even have an answer. Hey, Anthony, you're shooting. Hannah, you're passing. Your first look is this, right? It's those things, but like really make it a point to talk through it and then go practice it. I think that's 3 steps you've taken that most people don't think through, right? Like, let's talk about the most important decisions we're making. Let's talk about our answers and let's go practice that.
Yeah.
Now repeat 5 times. Like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Like 2 weeks worth of work, right? There you go. There's your practice plan for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's where I would start.
So one of the things that we did, and I think this is sport agnostic, is we had a segment in practice at least twice a week where that was filmed, that we would put a time and score on the board, right? So 3 seconds left, 10 seconds left, 20 seconds left, 60 seconds left, 2 minutes left, timeout, score up or down, and coaches couldn't coach. So the players had to run that environment and that situation for themselves.
Yeah.
And then we'd get done with that and we would talk about it immediately, but then we would go break it down on film, and we didn't as coaches, they did. And we're required to talk about each one of those situations as they go. Yeah. And I think you're empowered. And then we would do that in basketball. It was probably the most popular thing we did with our team camp was that session in team camp with high school coaches and teams to do. You're empowering your young people to make those decisions and then giving them the opportunity to talk about how they did it right or how they failed without you telling them how they did it right or how they failed.
So you're building autonomy too, which from a psychological standpoint is a huge factor in motivation. So autonomy is where you feel like you have the decision, the power over something that you get to do, right? A lot of times people will use autonomy choices in conditioning, right? Where it's like, okay, do you want to do this or do that? And either way, I don't care, but they get to choose. So they feel empowered, right? And that's what you did. And so that's a huge impact from a motivational standpoint too. So I love that.
I think it can, and I think that can go across this, any sport that you're coaching. Let's talk about this in with young people.
Yeah.
And that's maybe not related to sports, right? We're hoping that sports helps us to learn a whole lot of things. Best classroom for life, in my opinion, is that sports world, if it's handled appropriately. Let's say I'm a parent, right? And I've got a kid that continues to make poor decisions at school, poor decisions in whatever is going on. What are some ways and methods to be able to put things in front of kids to allow them that autonomy to make decision, reward that decision, and quantify some success for them in that?
Spankings. No, I'm kidding. No. I'm kidding. I don't know if I'll gain followers from that or lose followers from that.
Oh man, spanking! I haven't heard that. That was what happened to me, and it just led me to be sneakier. Is what it led me to.
There you go. No, but I think you said it right. It's all about what are we reinforcing, right? And not necessarily for the better or for worse, but it was like, how are we reinforcing their behaviors or their decisions in a right or a wrong way? And like, I think as kids get older, right, it becomes a little more challenging because they have more reasoning. And so it's like, then we're going to actually have to sit down and have a conversation about what are the consequences when you do this. And then to me, it's even a bigger conversation of like, what's the end goal here? What are you trying to achieve? Like maybe you're trying to be the best of the best, but you're waking up late, right? And you're showing up to practice 2 minutes before practice starts. And like, do you really want to be the best? Because I have to drag you out of bed. Do you really want to be the best because you're not eating enough protein, right? Do you really want to be the best because you were staying up late playing video games all night? And so it's like, you have to understand that and help them see that maybe their actions aren't aligned with the long-term goals that they have. And again, I think this is the hard part. It's not easy conversations to have. And a lot of things around mental performance aren't easy conversations to have, but I wouldn't expect a 12 to 16-year-old to be able to have this conversation by themselves. So therefore somebody, a mentor, a mom, a dad, a coach, somebody's got to be that guiding force to help them see things that maybe they're blindsided from, or maybe they've never even thought about because no one's ever said anything about it, right? And maybe they don't make a drastic change, but maybe you're planting a seed, right? And then when they do turn 16, 17, 18, they get to go to college, and all of a sudden they're thinking, maybe I shouldn't stay up late because I do have an important game tomorrow, or maybe I shouldn't eat this. Maybe I should eat something that's more going to fuel my performance than trash, whatever it is. I think you got to start small, but that's my first thought to that.
Yeah. You're continually talking about this as we go through this, right? It doesn't have to be some big giant thing, right? It's the start with the little stuff first and have an intention about the little stuff first that can grow into something bigger.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the business world.
Yeah.
I would imagine, well, I don't know. I don't know what to imagine here. What is this conversation like when you walk in to meet with an executive, and what are the kinds of decisions that they are worried about their people making, and is this a critical component to a better workplace?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty different than in sports, right? Because sports is like seconds. You've got seconds to respond, or else something's totally thrown off. Whereas in the workplace, you have longer than seconds, but potentially bigger decisions, right? That are with bigger consequences, you could argue. So it's more like, okay, I've got a deadline in 24 hours, 48 hours, and we got to make this right. It's got to be perfect. So I think a lot of times the biggest factor for corporate world making decisions is them kind of getting caught in the perfectionistic mindset. And like the thing that holds them back is if it doesn't feel perfect, they don't want to do it. And a lot of times it's like, we got to get the ball rolling, put some draft out there. We got to do something and then see where it goes, instead of just like wait till the last second to do it and try to make it perfect. I think that's the biggest part. And so for me, from a decision-making standpoint, it's like start with something, even if the decision is completely wrong and we're not submitting this, right? Like in sports, you can't really do that. In the real world, you can. It's like get something rolling, get the ball rolling, because we can't just go from 0 to 100 again. And so it's like put something out there, send it to your cohort, right? Let's start working on something. Instead of just like basically put things into action instead of just think about it. I think that's where decision making can impact people the most in the work field, is like we've got to get the ball rolling versus just like hold on to something forever and then it's too late. Right.
Yeah. Right. I know it was simple. We talked about this just a little bit ago, but it was easy for me to do that in a basketball practice, right?
Yeah.
Because that and the way that we made those things, because the topic is high stakes situations, right? Because decisions that aren't in a high stakes situation don't really impact anybody.
Right.
Decisions in a high stakes situation have the potential to impact lots and lots of people. The way we did it was to get those games that we played highly competitive and something was on the line all the time. How do you do that in the business world? How do you translate that thought process into the business world, knowing that there's a high stakes thing coming and I got to get these people trained to be autonomous to make those decisions quickly?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard, right? Because you can't really run a drill necessarily for them to get through. But I think that's why you do slowly work your way up in the workforce, right? And like, I think if you're thinking about how you're structuring your entire work, right? It's like first level, we're exposing them to this, right? Second level, we're exposing them to this. Stress inoculation, emotional regulation, confidence, right? We're going to build their confidence. We're going to let them fall on their face on this stage, right? So it's kind of building them up instead of just taking them from, oh, it's your first day. Hey, you got a deadline tomorrow. You better figure it out, right? Like, it's right. It's the same thing. How do you set someone up for success? And it's like giving them minor little things along the way. And then that slowly, as they continue to graduate and get better, hopefully they're getting promotions and being put in more and more serious decisions making, where it's like a gradual climb for them, and they're getting better and they're still failing, right? They're still being challenged constantly. That way, by the time it's time to make the Mac Daddy decision, right? They made the Mac Mom decision before that, right? It's like they're right there where they need to be, instead of like drinking from the fire hose and have no idea where to go. So it's kind of in the same thing, right? How are you preparing them in the long term and playing the long game a little bit more?
So I'm hearing this, and I'm a huge believer in this. And we talk about this with my other company, my consulting firm, that we work with companies on a whole bunch of different things. But the idea that you're continually talking about here is this isn't just job training of how to do a task. This is training your people and putting things in motion that train them how to do better at any task that they might be associated with in whatever that skill set is required to finish that job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you implement that? Like, what is the implementation? I know we only have a few minutes, but like, what is that? Because we got to get our work done, right? Like there's deadlines, but there's also this development of our people that we want to get so that our work that we get done is better. Like how do we implement that training program?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a super loaded question, right? It's like we're asking how do you get work done, but also develop our people at the same time. And we see this a lot in professional baseball, especially in the minor leagues, because you have tons of minor league coaches, right, who are coaching every single day, grinding it out, wearing it, all this stuff. But we also want them to develop. And on one hand, they are developing, right? They're coaches, they're getting hundreds and thousands of reps in every day, but also there's more ways that they could be developing off the field stuff. And so I've actually seen some MLB teams hired mental performance coaches just for the coaches. Right. To put them, they have life development coaches in there who can talk to you from anything from like how to manage your money to helping you with family issues to the mental performance coaches who come in. Right. So it's kind of twofold. And I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it's whatever works best for your organization or your team. But I think the biggest thing I would say is don't forget about you're still developing them, right? They're working day in and day out, but like, what can you offer to help develop them? Like maybe it is hiring a mental performance coach to come in and talk to them, or that you offer that they can have a one-on-one session with a mental performance coach and carry on sessions, and we're going to pay for that. Whatever it is, I think you can't forget to develop them and not just work them into the ground, right? We don't want them to just be good at the work that they're doing. We want them to be able to be good at the next step. And so I don't know if it's a mentorship program where like 1 week out of 3 months out of the year, you are going to come and just sit with your higher up and watch them go through the day, or you get to be me for a day, right? And come up and practice that. And I don't know, maybe they switch places. Like you probably have to be creative in your workforce, but you can't shut the window to where you want them to go, which I think does happen a lot because everybody's very protective of their jobs. And like, wait, if you get too good, then you're going to take my job, which is what you would want them to do, because that means you can move up, they can move up, and it's a seamless process. But you just got to remember it's not just work, but there's got to be development too. And people are attracted to that. If they come to a job and like, not only am I going to work, but you're also going to develop me in all these other areas and you have all these other things to support me, that sounds pretty great. Let's do that. So yeah. That's what I would say.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And we recommend a quarterly approach to it of development of your people around leadership, fiscal training, philanthropy, mental performance. So there's a whole list of things that you can pull from to have a quarterly approach to that. And what you said, I think, is really, really valuable, is if you put that effort into developing your people, the culture is going to change within your organization, and you're going to have far more loyal people to the organization than if you don't do that.
No doubt. Or else you're going to have people leaving.
Yes. The transfer portal
all the time.
It is. I mean, jokingly, but it's the truth. The transfer portal has been open in corporate America long before it was open in college athletics. It's called LinkedIn. And And if you can even put
now hiring and hide it from your employer. Sketchy, or looking for a job.
Yeah. Open to work, right? Like it is, you're being recruited every single day if you have a LinkedIn profile and have an intention about this kind of stuff with your people will give you a leg up on the people you're competing against.
No doubt.
Is there anything we missed on this topic?
I think just remember decision making. A lot of it majority of it, if not all of it, comes from how you're prepared and like what are you doing to build you up for the heat of that moment. You can't expect to just be able to handle the weight of the moment in the seconds that decision is needing to be made. So if you want to be better at making decisions under pressure, then you got to put a heck of a lot of work on the front end.
Yeah. And I think from the coaching side of it, then discuss it put them in situations and have that communication with them about the decisions that they made. I think there's a combination of those things can create pretty empowered and powerful groups of people going towards one mission.
Totally. No doubt about it.
All right, Hannah, how do people find you? Where do you show up in this big world that we live in?
Yeah, I'm on all kinds of social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And then I have my personal website is just hannahhuesman.com. So feel free to check it out and let us know you heard the episode.
Yeah, love to hear the feedback. You can follow us on Next Pitch, Next Pitch podcast on all the podcast platforms. Rate us, like us, and send us feedback. And if you want to hear a different topic than that you think is important, I'm always open to hearing from people. I've gotten some great feedback. Please reach out. We love to hear from the listeners. Hannah, until next time, thanks.
Until next time, thank you.